Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Basically Biblical. If you were able to tune in to the preview on last night, Friday, you would have heard about the first attribute that I discussed, and that was mercy, the mercy of God. We spoke then about the fact that I called mercy his foremost, his most indelible attribute. Now, that is in my mind because I believe that his mercy is so integral to our survival and our eventual love and acceptance of him. I think that we probably don't give God enough credit, certainly in the area of mercy. He is able to do whatever he, as God, deems necessary to bring about the best in his creatures and his plan for our lives and for our success. So it's no wonder that many people think that God is perhaps just some, you know, judgmental, horrible dictator who only seeks to punish when people don't do exactly what he says. And so on Friday, we talked about that even if that were the case, God is still and always has displayed his mercy. If it were true that he is that judgmental dictator tyrant that people think of him, some people think of him as, then one would have to ask the question, that being the case, why hasn't he just wiped us all off the planet? Because it's certainly clear that we are not, any of us, doing all that he has asked. So then it must not be the case that he is horrible, despicable, judgmental, tyrant, dictator that so many would make him out to be. And certainly Satan would like to cause you to believe that so that you would not serve God. Because remember, Satan's goal is to keep you from being in relationship with God. And remember how we talked about the fact that Satan increasingly uses some form of deception and doubt. So if he can give you for a moment an opportunity to doubt that God is who he is in all his capacity, then that undermines your ability to seek a relationship with God. So we talked about mercy yesterday, and we equated mercy to some other words that perhaps you wouldn't have thought of, like the word loyalty. God, it's amazing actually, because if you were thinking that he was this, this awful dictator, then why would he, the dictator, express loyalty to those that he created or that he governs? I mean, clearly, the dictators and tyrants, authoritarian people that we see today do not have this sense of loyalty to the people they govern, their subjects, if you will, or uh, the people who serve them, which is just totally amazing to me, and obviously is a very charged topic because it can lend itself to the politics of today, but we'll not get into that. Just asking the question, are these people who see themselves as so powerful and in charge, do they have loyalty to the people who follow them? I mean, really, we've seen these people kill their relatives. They've severed ties with people who they once professed to have such admiration for. But God, the all powerful, all knowing, ever present, supernatural, above anything that we can think or imagine, sovereign God expresses loyalty to his creatures. And here's an example. In Genesis chapter um, chapter 2 and 18, where God has said that he created man, and then he follows up with, it is not good for man to be alone. Let us create a help meet for him. So there we can see a number of qualities. God has created all of the earth, all the universe, everything that's in it, and then he creates man. He breathes his spirit into man, the spirit of life, the breath of life, and he observes everything that he has created, and he says, I shouldn't leave this man alone. It would be good if he had someone to associate with, someone who perhaps was more similar to himself than I am, God, as I am a spirit, and man I have made in flesh with part of my spirit. He should have someone, not only to just be a companion, but be a help meet. So he knew that man, even as perfect and as awesome as he created this creature, would still be in need of some association. And just recognizing, imagine here again, we have this supernatural, all intelligent, ever present, ever powerful, almighty God, and yet he is capable of seeing the frailness in this awesome creation he made called man. And therefore, in that compassion, mercy, and even to some degree, we can see the hint of loyalty there because he is providing, continuing to provide. He didn't leave Adam in the garden to just fend for himself. So he created for him a helpmeet. So that's in the very beginning. And then in the end, he also expresses his mercy, his compassion, his loyalty, his love to man. In that, when Jesus is describing to the disciples what the end time, in other words, the time of the end, the time of the end of this age would be like, he says in Mark chapter 13, starting with verse 19, he says, in those days, and this is the words of Jesus, for in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. So he's describing what the end time, the end of the age, would include. And he's saying here there will be afflictions, great afflictions, afflictions such that there had never been since the earth was created. And then he goes on to say in verse 20, and except that the Lord had not shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. Now remember, here in Mark 13, this is Jesus describing to the disciples what the end of days, the end of age, would be like. He first tells them there will be great afflictions. And then he says, but the Lord, for the sake of the elect. Now, who are the elect? The elect are the chosen of God. The elect are also those who responded to God and have accepted God, have acknowledged his deity, acknowledged him as the creator. And Jesus is saying, except for those people. In other words, if it were not for those people, the elect, God would have extended the days of affliction. But because of those chosen people, he has shortened the days. Here again, if God was this wicked, awful, terrible dictator, tyrant type that so many want to say, why would he shorten the time of the affliction? The affliction, mind you, that is being brought upon the earth in the end of the age because of judgment. Judgment for all those who have continued in their sin and denial of God. He perfectly